Olá, bom dia todo mundo. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the third episode of Snakebite Roraima 2.0. And so, in this webinar, we are talking about snakebite and the huge public health burden of snakebite at an international level. And so, we meet every month with one snakebite expert from across the globe. And so this week, I'm very excited to introduce Gnaneswar Chandrasekaruni, a mentor and a great friend. So Gnaneswar is a herpetologist, conservationist, and a photographer, as well as the project leader of the Snakebite Prevention and Mitigation Project at the Madras Crocodile Bank Trust in Chennai, India. His work focuses on community-based snakebite prevention, snake conservation, public education, and strengthening links between herpetology and public health. He's conducted hundreds of workshops, filmed and directed multiple educational films, designed national snakebite apps, and contributed to national snakebite policies. He's one of the world's youngest international leaders in the snakebite world, and I'm really excited to hear from him always. So, without further ado, thank you so much for joining us today, Gnansford, and you can take it away and share your slides.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. So pleased to be here talking to some of you that I could probably see on the screen and most of you who are joining us live. Um, Unfortunately, I'll be speaking most of my time in English, almost all of my time in English. So please bear with me. And I will try to keep it as engaged as possible. At the same time, talk about the seriousness of the issue because it's pretty bad across the globe. I'll just take a moment to present my screen. Chloe, do confirm it to me if you see it when I share it. Um, yeah.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay. Perfect. 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 So I'll start from here. Uh, so I'll be speaking today about promoting coexistence between people and snakes. I believe most of you are from a clinical background. So you would probably be seeing victims at a state of snake bites. So when an incident already happens or when incidents are likely to happen at a certain spot. What we do back in India is try to see if before an incident happens, if we could actually mitigate. And in the process, we all of us are passionate snake lovers or conservationists who also feel that snakes are very important for the ecosystem and it's very important to conserve them. So the idea is to promote coexistence that's between snakes and people, which is quite difficult, as all of you know. But the idea is to try. So I present this organization called as the Madras Crocodile Bank Trust. We are a zoo, primarily a zoo based in India, in southern parts of India. We were founded back in 1976. So if you are good at math, this is the 50th year of our organization and its working nation. And we are also working in the space of conserving reptiles. We have centers in rainforests, in the islands, in the rivers that would primarily support reptile conservation. You all must know that snakes are reptiles. Just like snakes, there are crocodiles, there are turtles and tortoises, there are giant lizards and small lizards. All of these we try to conserve. In addition to being a zoo, we also have established a wide network of outreach programs. And these programs are done primarily to ensure that the coexistence is encouraged. We also run a venom collection center. We don't really run it. We facilitate a venom collection center in India, which is probably the biggest right now in the country, and in certain measurements, it can also be the biggest in the world. To give you a context, India is also very diverse, just like Brazil. Brazil is probably far more diverse, but in India, we have about 380 plus species of snakes. Almost of these snakes are harmless. Out of these 380 plus species of snakes, we call something 60 to 70 of them are considered dangerous. I'm using the term dangerous very cautiously because there are a lot of snakes that are venomous but not capable of causing a problem to the humans. So 60 of them are considered dangerous because their bite can cause some sort of effects. It could be systematic or it could be pretty much tropical. In these 60 species of snakes, we have something called the big four venomous snakes, which I'll go further down. And these are the cobras, kraits, and the vipers that we have. Back in Brazil, I don't think you have the cobras and kraits. You just have the vipers and the coral snakes. But in India, we have both the colubrids and the viperids, which are capable of causing bites and fatalities. India is also very biodiversely spread out, just like Brazil. There are a lot of comparisons and similarities. India has the coasts like the Brazil. India has riverine habitats like the Amazon. India has rainforests, just like the places in Brazil, and it also is heavily dependent on agricultural products and livestock management. So a lot of similarities. Just that there are certain snakes that are found in India that are not found in Brazil. That's pretty much about it. Uh, what you see on screen right now are usual groups of snakes that we find in India. If you see on the left, um, you see on pretty much, let me just point out, these are the cobras, the snakes that are typical defensive when you put them, when you get too close, they put their head up. You will see them in Africa, you will see them in Asia. And these are, of course, quite potent neurotoxic snakes capable of living very close proximity with people. And as dangerous they might look, they're very docile. They're very easy to understand as species. These are very common. I think India, we have about four species of true cobras and a couple of species of king cobras. The world's longest venomous snakes are found in India. These are the kraits. These are also colubrid snakes, highly neurotoxic snakes. These are capable of, they are mostly nocturnal in nature. They come out in the night, and that's where most snake bites happen with these snakes. We have about half a dozen species of them in India. And supposedly these are some of the most potent venomous snakes in India because of their neurotoxic abilities. Then we have the saw-scaled viper, again, Echis, which is spread across southern South Asia, Central Asia, and also in Africa. And a snake that is most revered across Indian habitats are the Russell's viper. The snake that you see right here is one of the most deadliest snakes of India. I don't like to use the deadliest term, but it's supposedly the snake that causes the most number of snake bites in India. It's pretty big. It can grow up to 4 or 5 feet in length. But it's nothing like your bushmasters or your lance heads. It's a very different behaved snake, and it's of course it's a true viper, unlike the pit vipers. But we also have pit vipers, very similar to your pit vipers. We have pit vipers across India. There are at least 30 to 40 species of pit vipers of different genera that we have. But in India, most pit vipers are incapable of causing fatalities, mainly because of their venom potency, I suppose. But uh, but we don't have many fatalities reported from pit vipers, except for a couple of species. So these groups more or likely form the venomous snakes of or the dangerous snakes of the country. We do have coral snakes like Brazil, but they're very rare and very unlikely to bite human. Uh, you see that the problem of snake bite across the globe is pretty much in the tropics and countries where there are supportive temperature conditions for snakes. Most of the snake bites happen in places where there is also equal density of people. It's snake bites cannot just happen where there are a lot of snakes but very less number of people. For example, if you take the Australian landscape as an example, Australia has probably far more number of venomous snake species than India, but there is barely any deaths and barely very few snake bites in Australia. This is because the people are also very few. Whereas when you look at India or Brazil, you would see that there are a lot of people densely packed and a lot of snakes around them. So that's probably the reason why snake bites are more prevalent in countries like India, Brazil, and in the continent of Africa because of population of people also being equally large. It's not just the species of snakes. For a conservation perspective, we should understand that there is something called as human wildlife conflict. This is when there is a negative interaction between a person and an animal. So you guys must have heard about in back in Africa where people get killed by crocodiles or hippopotamuses, elephants. I can't think of any major conflicts in Brazil. I don't know the bigger predators there, but I'm sure people do get injured by probably by jaguars or maybe while swimming by any other fish. But at best, that. However, across the globe, there are other animals that are capable of killing people. And this is not because they would like to kill people, it's just that people and those animals also share the same landscape. So when you see how many people are killed by these wild animals across the world, you could come to close to 2,000 to 3,000 people are killed every year by wild animals. Equally, wild animals also killed by the people. But when you look at snakes, probably one of the smallest of the larger predators out there, snakes alone contribute to the biggest of them. There are about 130,000 people die every year because of snake bites, which you must have heard from the previous talks as well. And the problem is so huge that it is now labeled more of a conflict and more of less of a conflict and more of a disease. You must have seen about the World Health Organization's neglected tropical disease. So this is a list which talks about these tropical diseases that are often neglected and overseen, mainly because of their prevalence, because they happen to the poorest of the people, and also reporting it is very difficult. So snake bites up top that list there with about 125,000 deaths of humans every year. When you look at India, this is slightly outdated math at this point of time, but when you look at India, India is labeled as a snakebite capital of the world, or rather, the Indian subcontinent, which is comprising of 5 countries, is labeled as a snakebite capital of the world. This is primarily because of, again, population of people. We are about 1.6 billion people, I suppose. That's pretty massive for a country. And also because a majority of us thrive in rural landscapes where agricultural practices are abundant. And this is how snake bites happen. And of course, when these things happen, when we are below, when there are areas which are below poverty lines, access to healthcare is also a problem. There are certain scenarios very unique from in Brazil to India, but again, more or likely the structure is the same. And you all know that even if a person survives a snake bite, there are great chances of morbidity. I'm not sure about the morbid conditions that is a consequence of snake bite in Brazil, but we know that across Asia and across Africa, morbidity becomes very common, especially because a majority of the snakes that are there in these 2 continents have a mix of both uh, neurotoxic and hemotoxic venoms, which often is not necessarily neutralized all the time. So there is that, and then there's also lack of response time. People also reach hospitals late, and there are several situations where people are forced to not to go to hospitals, because of which morbidity is pretty frequent, and morbidity makes the survivor much less efficient. So it can have cascading effect on their household management and also on their families. And morbidity is not just physical. We also know about mental morbidity and psychological conditions where people suffer traumatic injuries, often having nightmares, having insomnia, also having traumatic experiences post snake bite. As much as I like to speak about people, I should also inform you that a lot of snakes are also killed. You all know that usual response when you see a snake is kill it and then think what it is about. So snakes are killed everywhere because of misunderstandings, because of a lot of information that is inaccurate about them, because of some myths. So snakes are often killed and or they come to the road to thermoregulate and then run over. So there are a lot of snakes that die. So the problem is on both the sides. It's not just that people are dying, even snakes are dying. So the conflict is pretty massive. Why does this problem occur in India? And this is also very similar to practices in Africa or some parts of Asia as well. You see these 3 scenarios here. There are some women working in the field here. You see the women working in the field here. There is a person sleeping generally outdoors because one cannot. It gets very hot in India, and you cannot necessarily afford electricity all the time. So you sleep outdoors. It's better ventilation. Or you're walking out in the night. You're just walking back to your home as usual. You're not necessarily wearing footwear. It's also an affordability cost. And if you live all your life without footwear, you won't feel comfortable. These are general scenarios of everyday things. This probably constitutes of 18 to 20 hours of a person's lifetime. Work, sleep, and commute to work or commute back to home. So these three scenarios happen so frequently, and in these three scenarios is where snakebite really happens. Because people are not going out of their way, people are not venturing into another habitat and trying to catch a snake is when they're getting bitten. They're actually doing their everyday lifestyle practices. They're following their usual routines. And sadly, that's where snakes also thrive and people get bitten. After being bitten in India and also, I suppose, across a lot of tropics, people believe in alternate remedies. I'm sure you must have heard about incidences where victims come to hospitals with, let's say, tight tourniquets made or incisions or sometimes even burnt marks, because there are practices where it's in ancient literature about treatment of snake bites. Sadly, we know that if someone is bitten by a snake, there is a very little chance that they're bitten by a venomous snake. For example, if 10 people are bitten by snakes, it is likely that maybe 8 or 9 of them are bitten by venomous snakes. The remaining are probably 8 or 9 of them are bitten by non-venomous snakes. The remaining 1 or 2 are bitten by the venomous snakes. So often, so when people visit these alternate medicine practitioners, you don't even need to do anything. If a person is bitten by a non-venomous snake, you don't need to do anything. You just have to keep them calm. That's pretty much about it. But then people give them medicines, and they get cured, and people start building faith in these alternate medicines. It's a circular effect. People go for a disease that actually has no side effects, yet get treatment and feel that they have got successful treatment, and they believe in these practices. So this is one of the reasons why people still believe in faith healing. People still believe in herbal medicine, alternative medicine. People still believe in other practices which are actually much more harmful, like making cuts or incisions or making burns. And all of this leads to delayed hospital care. A person who's probably bitten now spends 1 hour or 2 hours at an alternate medicine practitioner, and they lose that valuable first couple of hours where they can get right treatment and be cured faster and more efficiently. Because of this, people suffer a lot more problem. And we also know, I'm not sure how much of this is apt in Brazilian context, but across India and most Southeast Asian regions and also in Africa, we know that the hospital care is not necessarily adequate. We know the staff are not sufficient. Especially in India, we have a lot more patients and a lot less staff. Staff are not sufficient, and staff are probably not trained adequately for treating snake bites. And there could be shortage of antivenom and sometimes even shortage of other medical supplies. All of this also contribute to bad treatment of snake bites. And this also has a downscaling effect. If a person dies in a hospital, that entire family or that entire village loses trust in that hospital, and they stop going to the hospital. So they'll start relying back on the traditional healers or practitioners. So all these are very interconnected. And this is probably one of the biggest reasons why snake bites are still prevalent, and snake bite related fatalities are even more prevalent across India and other similar regions. In India, we have a polyvalent antivenom, just like how you folks have a polyvalent antivenom for all the bothrops, and a different antivenom for some other species. In India, for all the venomous snakes, we only use one antivenom, which is not accurate, which is not probably neutralizing enough. So this has been the situation for the last 50 to 70 years. A lot of us try to change this way, but it's very difficult. And the venom that is collected is also having its own side effects because it's collected from one specific region in the country. And there is science that proves that venom between the same species differs geographically. That means, let's say that you have a Bothrops that has venom from, let's say, somewhere in Manaus. The same Bothrop species somewhere in probably in southern parts of Brazil, their venom could be different because of geographical variations. And this is spread across South American landscape, spread across Africa, spread across Asia. This fundamental is almost similar, and because of which, if you collect venom from just from one region, your antivenom is not specific to the entire country. It is specific probably to that specific region. So this problem is also having a great role, because sometimes people come to hospital in time, people have not done any of the traditional practices, they come to hospital in time, but suddenly the antivenom is not working efficiently. You all know antivenoms are made from external sources like the horses, and using equine substances into human body, it usually repels, and sometimes it can give side effects like anaphylaxis or any of the problems. So pumping more antivenom into a human is pretty bad. I've learned that in Brazil, you have a very small dosage. You go from 3, 5, 7, or 10 at best. In India, we start with 10 vials, that is 100 ml of antivenom. That's the base dosage. Then we go up to 40 vials of antivenom. That's 40 ml of antivenom, 400 ml of antivenom. That's a lot of fluids entering into a human body which are not specific to humans. So this itself has a larger implication. Sometimes it has long-lasting implications on kidney. It can cause acute kidney injuries, sometimes even acute kidney failures. And if it's not treated in sufficiently, if people keep pumping more antivenom, one can become even anaphylactic and lose their life to antivenom side effects than actually the venom. So all these are there. So the problem only extends and becomes bigger in most of this context. So that's the reason why we continuously see a lot of fatalities. Uh, Coming back to what we do, we try to understand this problem we understand that right now the problem gets complicated once when you're bitten by a snake. You're bitten by a snake, you need to make sure that people are going to hospitals. Once you go to the hospitals, you need to make sure that the doctors are trained and nurses are staffed. And once everybody's staffed enough, you have to ensure that the antivenom is efficient. So it gets complicated once when you're bitten. So what we do is encourage people, help people, and sort of make them understand of the situation and how not to get bitten. It's very behavioral change oriented. It has more to do with public health and preventive health rather than promoting of antivenom and treatment as such. So we go to communities, we conduct a lot of programs of different categories. We do trainings, we do workshops, we do outreach programs, we develop materials, then we distribute those materials, a little bit of research here and there to understand, then a lot of behavioral studies. We do a lot of work so that we could approach this entire problem holistically. It requires a multidisciplinary approach. One person doing it in one way, you need to collaborate with multiple people and do this forward. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult. So that's the map of India on the left. And we are spread across quite a few states, actually. We are spread across about 14 states where we do a lot of these activities. To begin with, we do a lot of outreach. We strongly believe that the first, if you're able to prevent snake bites from happening, you have a great chance of, sort of reducing snake bite fatalities. Preventing is quite clearly an opportunistic thing. Like I know that I will not get bitten by a snake if I don't if I'm careful about my surroundings. But this attitude is, for me, it's a privilege, because I live somewhere in a city. It's very unlikely I'll see a snake on regular basis. But for someone living in rural parts of India, it's their everyday practice. There are people who probably see snakes almost every day. So making them understand of the simple concepts of prevention, using torchlights, understanding times to walk past a stream and things as such, usually help a lot. And these often help them to also understand, okay, if at all you're bitten by a snake, what do you do? So first aid practices, the myths that surround the snake, and as such. So we conduct these programs across schools, institutions, public health facilities, community centers. And we primarily try to target younger population because these are the population that shows promise in behavioral change. When you speak to them at a younger age, they're less exposed to myths and wrong information. And you could see that maybe in the next 10 years, there are probably less number of snake bites because those people who have attended our programs now are at the stage where they would probably understand how to prevent. Prevention outreach is not about just this. Right now I have all of you listening to me because you are all told to listen to me. But when we go back to schools, when we go back to educational centers, it's very hard to gather their attention. Maybe you will have them for 5 minutes attentive, maybe for 6 minutes or 10 minutes at best. But if you want to speak to them for an hour and keep them attentive, you need to go beyond presentations. We need to start developing materials that would be interactive. So we have developed songs that would so possibly where we play it for children, and they're all excited. They probably dance a little, and that 5 minutes of excitement carries for the next half an hour or 40 minutes because they're expecting something else to change again. That they're expecting some more excitement. So we give them maybe half an hour later. We give them a jigsaw puzzle and ask them to solve it. And this is the kind of outreach and communication that we try to do because it needs to be interactive, not just one way of me speaking and probably them just listening. It's not going to be easy. We make cartoons. We've been helping people understand about snakes and how to safely live with them. Children, as respond better to cartoons. And a lot of our programs involve hands-on activities where people can be part of that program. It's not just us conducting the program, but people actually speaking up there. In addition to that, we do various kinds of trainings. This is where the frontline staff and staff that are responsible for ensuring safety are trained of specific activities. For example, educators, teachers, community educators, community leaders are trained about first aid practices, prevention and right myths, demystifying myths, and as such. Then snake rescuers, those guys who go and catch snakes from houses, they're trained about safety practices. How should they be safe when they're catching snakes and bagging them without getting bitten? And we also try to talk to media, the press and print media, to less dramatize snakes because we all know how snakes are dramatized. If you go open YouTube and put snakes, you'd see the most viral non-snake-like videos. You've all seen the movie The Anaconda. We all know that's not how an anaconda is. That's not how big it is, and that's not how scary it is to be out there in the Amazon. But that was the movie that set everybody scared. If I say that I know I have seen an anaconda, everybody thinks it's a massive snake that's likely to eat me. So that is the kind of sensitization that we are looking at. Normalize snakes as animals and not show them as figurines of negative impact. Uh, this is avoidable. Something that we have actually been working on, that actually working as a tool to prevent snake bites in India, is a mobile application. It's called as a Serpent Initiative. Uh, Very coincidentally, a part of its initiative was also tried to be implemented in Brazil. In India and Brazil are the two countries where this was tried to be implemented. In India, it had seen a great success, especially in a couple of states where we have seen a large impact of people. So it's like an Uber. For example, let's say that you have to go from one place to another place, you book an Uber. Similarly, if there is a snake in your house and you are scared, you don't know what to do. So you open this app called a Serpa or Serpent, you click a picture and press the emergency button. It will look for the nearby snake rescuers, snake catchers who are in your vicinity, and they come to your house, pick up the snake, and go release it safely somewhere. It's like an Uber for snakes. We do trainings for them. We have a lot of programs which are dedicated to train these people and put them on the application and try to make them understand. And these workshops help in the snake rescuers in being more safe. As you know, a lot of times people who go for catching snakes are little, careless, and they get bitten by snakes and they become victim. The person who went there to catch or rescue a snake or save a snake becomes victim of snake bite. So to ensure safety and enhance their abilities to rescue a snake safely, we conduct these programs. What you see right now on your image on the screen is a small district, like a small province in a state in India. It is about 40 square kilometers by 40 square kilometers. So it's about it's a small area of a district in India, and all the red dots that you see are venomous snakes that are caught from that specific point. You see, all these are all houses, and you see a lot of venomous snakes. So the idea is to tell you that snakes live alongside humans in majority of the cities also. We just don't realize it because they are nocturnal. They try to find their way through the drainages or through the streets when they're little empty. They don't necessarily come out during the very busy day. And a lot of these snakes were caught and released in nearby situations. So the Serpent app, helps us to plot a map like this. It helps us to understand the abundancy and density of snakes. For example, what you see, um, I think somewhere around here, there is a hospital. So we can inform that hospital that there are a lot of snakes that are being captured around your area. So always stock up with antivenom extra. And there is a school around here, so we can always go to that school and inform the school that there are snake sightings, so let us do an outreach program. And there will be some other areas like housing complexes and things as such. So the data is used to furthermore do data driven interventions where we promote research and we promote education and outreach and communication. We also work with medical practitioners in training, doctors and nurses. As we all know that in most places in parts of rural India, doctors are not available all the time. So the nurse practitioners are usually there, and it's important that they are informed about snake bites and how can they administer right first aid and keep the patient stable before the doctor arrives. So we do a bit of trainings. I'm not a trained clinician myself. We usually hire another clinician or we join hands with a medical facility to do these programs. So the doctor training programs are quite comprehensive. They're taught about airway management, stabilization, keeping the patient stable, how to use antivenoms, and what are the dosage studies that you should be worried about while giving antivenoms and side effects as such. So all these are taught in these doctor training workshops. As you know, One Health is a major topic of interest lately, and this approach of snake bites is pretty much a One Health topic. We're looking at how both the welfare of the environment because of snakes availability and welfare of people from not being bitten by snakes is a right example for One Health approach. So we've been developing policies on those lines in ensuring that both snakes and people's priorities are set right. A majority of what I speak comes from evidence because we what we do usually is that it's easy for probably when you are at a clinical setup, you could find evidence. You know the patient has come with a set of symptoms, you note it down, and the patient is treated. If they have if you have treated them successfully, then they're discharged with a certain kind of improvement. So you have a tangent where you can say that okay, a person has been treated and they have left healthy. However, in outreach programs and in these training workshops, it's pretty hard to measure. So we definitely use tools that are more accessible and that are more behavioral change oriented in social science sectors. And we train and we analyze these data points and come to a conclusion. For example, if we see that there are people who are not understanding what we say, or if people are underperforming in their evaluation surveys, even after our intervention, we change our ways. We probably reduce our time or increase the quality of content or change the language or be more specific about it. So monitoring and evaluation plays a huge role in continuously developing these programs. And this is where a majority of you will probably agree that it is important to be more effective in outreach. It could be even 20 minutes long and the outreach could be effective than conducting a 3 hour program where the engagement is very little. We have done a case study back in 2019, which I often like to talk about, is because this case study was a prime example of what monitoring and evaluation is about. We have given free gumboots, free torchlights, free mosquito nets to a lot of people, about 200 odd families, 150 odd families in a part of the country. and we try to understand why people are using it or not using it, if there is any hindrance in people not using it. We have noticed that we always tell how you should wear protective footwear so that you're preventing snake bites. But as when we say that, we often feel like maybe we are not understanding the ground reality. We are not understanding the sentiment of the rural population. So we gave these gumboots and we try to understand what would prevent them from using these gumboots. Trust me, the biggest factor after distributing this 150 gumboots that people were not using these gumboots was because they didn't like the color. That was as simple as that. So we maybe from an outside perspective, I could always say that gumboots are important. But for somebody who uses it every day, imagine that you are using a helmet every day and the government imposes that helmet rule on you. But if you don't like the way your helmet looks, you will be discouraged from using it. Very similarly, the gumboots didn't look nice. They looked very ugly for them, so they didn't like to use it. Or they were heavy for them. They weren't willing to use it. It was suffocating for them to use. So all these are very general concepts that we often miss when we talk about outreach. We keep saying that use gumboots, but at the end of the day, the kind of inconveniences that come with these kind of materials should also be understood, and then accordingly we should devise a plan. And that's what we've been trying to do. um, in snake bites, or in the entire spectrum of snake bites, every day is an opportunity to unlearn and learn again, because what was valid until yesterday, we suddenly feel like, okay, we are assuming it, so we have to unlearn it and again start learning. That's pretty much what snake bite teaches you, and or treatment in snake bite teaches you, because things change. Not every case that you see will be identical. Not every time you see a victim it's going to be easy. So every time we should be with an open mind that things are changing, and we should continuously unlearn and then start learning about snakes over and over again. Um, that's what I would like to talk to you about today, and then that's pretty much most of what I would like all of you to know, because snake bites are a problem that are very prevalent, but they're equally avoidable. So when something like that happens, we often feel like, why, when something is so avoidable, why does it still occur in the entirety of the world? So it's because of people not being sure of what they're doing. So thank you very much. I'd be delighted to take any questions if there are any. Chloe, will there be questions in this, or will there be just a talking session?
Yeah, there will be questions.
Okay. So yeah, that's pretty much what I'd like to inform. I think that's 30 minutes, 35 minutes of me speaking.
Great. Thank you so much for this presentation, Ganeshwar. And it's really funny to see how people's preferences can look compared to what we would expect people to be focused on. In the context
Yeah.
of snake bites, we think that the gumboots are so important, but something like a color can be so much more important. So, yeah, really fascinating all of these points. And yeah, we welcome you to drop your questions in the chat. Se vocês têm perguntas, pode colocar também no chat em português ou em inglês. Sejam bem-vindos. Eu posso tentar traduzir para vocês. So we'll see if anyone wants to put a Portuguese question in the chat. I have one question for you.
Yeah.
You mentioned this national policy that's being implemented in India. How is this looking at a state level? Because I know that this was a national level policy and then it goes down to the state level.
Okay. It's little complicated because in India, especially, states and the country have their own autonomous nature uh, of doing their activities, especially in the subject of health. So right now, the national policy is being translated into different ways that the state would like. We have seen some states already showing a large promise in translating this national policy into state level activities. But it's a big challenge because firstly, the context. is needs to be set far more narrowed down. Even at a state level, certain states in India are so massive that even if you have a state level policy, when you go further down into a district level, the policy again has to be even more narrowed down. So at this point of time, there is promise with the major snakebite burden states in India where there is the action plans or the policies coming intact. And there is an increased interest, to be honest. I think the government is showing far more interest on snake bites than it was 5 years ago or 6 years ago, because they're also realizing that there is data that would back this crop burden and it is going to be equally important.
Right. Thank you. All right.
I don't see people asking questions, so I'm going to.
Marvin, do we have any questions in the chat?
No, we don't have.
Right. Wonderful. Well, if we have no questions in the chat, I guess we can call it a night. And if people have other questions, then I'll forward them on to you and then leave them as responses on the YouTube video.
I think there was a question there. Is there a question?
Okay. Marvin. Okay. Oh, from Julia. Hi, thank you for your presentation. It was amazing. I have a simple question, but I'd like to ask you what do you like the most? For example, when you see people change their minds.
Oh, wow. Uh, when people change their minds, it is quite fruitful because, we always struggle for that at the most. And uh, it's really hard. We just try to familiarize behavioral change with everyday practices. We try to make them understand that it's their personal safety that we try to promote, and it's at an expense of people understanding or not. Um, we very much try to connect their everyday practices. We try to help them understand the basics of prevention and behavior change, and we try to bring humor. We usually use humor as a methodology to talk sense, because often so people, when they're a little bit lighthearted, are likely to listen to you more and probably feel more informally attached to you on this cause than a very strict top to bottom directional order where people don't necessarily respond properly.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's exciting to see people overcome those preconceived ideas.
Hmm.
All right. Thank you so much. Great. So if we have no more questions, thank you so much, Naneshwar, for coming to share your experience and telling us all about your huge range of work. Okay.
Oh, there's another.
We have one more. Okay, the question is whether you think that the WHO
No,
will reach its
no,
goal.
no. I could see the 50% and 2030, and I would say no from here. I think that I would rather argue what is the 50% target, because we don't know how many deaths really happen. For example, in country like India, the reporting happens. There are reported deaths of 3,000 per annum to reported deaths of 60,000 per annum. We ourselves don't know, and this is pretty much prevalent across the globe. We ourselves don't know where which is the right figure. We ourselves don't know how many people are really dying. So calling a 50% to a number that we don't know of, I don't think we could achieve. It's we probably WHO can on the paper, but in reality, I strongly argue it would not be possible, because if we don't know what is 50% for, we could never achieve a reduction. And so Yeah, I think I don't understand Portuguese as much, but the moment I saw the 50%, I said I'm 100% sure it is not possible.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's really difficult. I know that as we get better at reporting cases of snakebite, potentially the number of cases could even go up. But this is a sign of
Yeah,
success that we are recording these cases. And so at the end of the day, it's really hard to achieve that goal based on really poor data reporting systems.
yeah.
So,
Some countries have shown better promise. I think like Sri Lanka, and I think even Brazil to a certain extent, they've shown promise in reducing snake bites, snake bite related deaths. But I think 50% is a very hard number to understand. But of course, there has been improvement. Certain countries have shown a direction in which you could reduce snake bites, and there is a lot of learning from that.
yeah. We have one more question. What would you think is important to reach that goal by 2050?
Firstly, we should start reporting. We should know if we are reaching. The goal is set on numbers. It's very hard to know what number we are relatable to. Firstly, reporting should be more consistent across the globe. Once the reporting is there, we could always measure. Otherwise, my efforts or all of our efforts would look like it has no impact because we don't know the reporting. That's of course reporting being the top priority. The second priority, of course, is to understand how we could consider behavior change. I believe that a lot of younger generation are now prone to behavior change. Those who are right now in their early teens or mid teens would be in their working class age in 2050. They would be in their mid 30s or about late or mid 40s. So right now is the time to promote education and outreach so that by the time when they are actually out there studying and out there raising children of their own, they'd be able to inculcate these information that is right and can be used for immediate response of snake bites. And it's also going to be a major requirement going forward to see if we could go beyond antivenoms, go beyond structure, go beyond the current situation of antivenoms and find more effective medicines for snake bites because we are currently lacking it. Supply of drugs and also having effective drugs is going to be a thing. So my top three is going to be that reporting, then outreach, and then a better drug.
Yeah, lofty goals even
Yeah.
for the next 30 years. Yeah, but I think that with all of this hard work, we'll reach there eventually. Great. Well, I'll give it one more moment in case we have any lingering questions. It
Yeah,
seems like we start to
I'm all
close,
you.
the questions come in. I'm curious, actually. So you mentioned that as you conduct education, you're really hoping that these children will become adults who kind of make this into part of their culture for their children. Whenever you
Yeah.
conduct education for adults, I know it's hard to make them change their behavior, but do you think that that makes a lot of education for adults more obsolete?
Uh, it gets difficult, I would say. I wouldn't call it obsolete at this point of time. It just takes a lot more time and different techniques of engaging with adults because you can't necessarily depend on the same techniques that you use for children for adults. Adults, you might need to tone up your voice. You might need to be with more logic and reasoning. When it's with children, it's a lot different. But of course, behavior change with adults would take a lot more time, um, a lot more efforts. I haven't been as successful enough to say what is working right now, but what's not working is all I can say right now.
Great. All right. Well, thank you very much for sharing your experience. And this has been a really wonderful talk, as always. I think I learn something new every time I watch one of your presentations, which says something because I've seen a lot of them. So
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you so much for dedicating your night to this talk.
All right. Thank you so much for having me over. And I see good friends, Felipe and Julia, sending some claps and amazing work. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. And before I sign out, I would like to cheer for Brazil to win the World Cup this year. I've always been a Brazilian fan. I've always loved Kaka, so I hope that Brazil wins the World Cup this year. I'm looking forward to it.
We're all cheering for you, Brazil. Great. Thank you so much for our viewers, and thank you so much for this to the Snakebite Horaima team for helping to organize all of this. To Manuela, Felipe, to Sophia and Marvin for helping set up this streaming. And without further ado, so I'll leave you all to enjoy your day. Thank you very much. Oh, one more question.
Oh,
See,
there's been a question.
when we start to close, this is when the question will come.
That's good.
Please shoot the question. Yeah, go ahead. How do people react to economic loss caused by livestock snakebite incidents?
Most of the time, people don't know what's caused because of snake bite, because oftentimes livestock just drop dead or they're excessively bleeding. So when people know it's because of snake bite, there is of course agony. There is of course it's very similar agony to losing a child, and people, especially in rural parts where they are entirely dependent on livestock, they behave the same way like losing a child. So there is a lot of agony. But having said that, we really don't know uh, how would one diagnose a snake bite victim of livestock who's a snake bite bitten by a snake. But the pain is the pain. There is people who are in agony all the time.
Yeah, it's quite a tragedy to
Yeah,
lose that, especially whenever you are in an economically difficult position. An animal is really part of the family, and yeah, it can be
yeah,
devastating.
that's true. Yeah,
Yeah.
especially if you're it's a difficult situation, and compensations are very difficult to claim for loss of uh, loss of life, especially in livestock and cattle. So yeah.
Yeah. All right. They're clapping us out. So
Yeah,
thank you so much, Gnanshu,
that's what.
for this
Yeah.
presentation. And I'll release you to enjoy your night. So thank you all
Thank
to
you,
our
guys.
thank you, Snakebite Horaima team. And I'll see you all for the next episode of Snakebite Horaima 2.0. Thank you all. Bye bye.
Bye bye.